So, my dear saints by calling, here we are on another Sunday. We covenant with the Lord and with one another, and do bind ourselves in the presence of God to walk together in all his ways, according as he is pleased to reveal himself unto us in his blessed word of truth. That covenant was written in 1629 by the Puritan founders of the first church in Salem, Massachusetts, which is now a Unitarian Universalist congregation. I actually love this covenant, in part because I love church history. I just really do. It's fascinating. I love its simplicity, a covenant that's one sentence long. Who knew? Granted, by 1636, they had come up with a much longer version that actually makes ours look short. But for me, it offers the essence of what a covenant is, or it shows it. And if I were to update it for our times, we do bind ourselves together in the presence of what we hold as most sacred, to walk together in all the ways that the Spirit of love and truth reveals itself to us. We can do it in a sentence, too. For we can see in the sentence how a covenant differs from a creed. Covenants and creeds do function in some of the same ways. Among other things, they describe what is at the center, the heart of a religious tradition or a religious community. Its theology, its values, its ethics. They provide a way for members of the community, the religious community, to articulate their faith to those inside and outside of their tradition, and to speak in the public square on the ethical and moral issues of the day. But the big difference between a creed and a covenant, I believe, is that creeds are complete, unchanging, while covenants are in constant conversation between a religious tradition and its members, past, present, and future, as well as with the evolving understandings and experiences with the sacred. For example, the Nicene Creed was written in 325, as Christianity moved from one of just several of these outside Jesus follower groups into an organized religion. And it was amended in 381 at the command of Emperor Constantine. But guess what? It has not changed since. Creeds also describe what a person must believe in order to be accepted into a faith community. Covenants, on the other hand, center on the promises members of a community offer to one another in service of what they trust is sacred and true, knowing that that knowledge is incomplete. We do bind ourselves to walk together in the ways that are revealed to us. A covenant is a walk together, which means, of course, it can be changed. It will be changed. Unitarian Universalism is a covenantal tradition, a tradition that we can trace back to the Puritan roots on our Unitarian side, back to that Cambridge platform. Because of covenant, we transcended our Christian roots to be welcoming and inclusive of other religious and ethical beliefs and traditions. We believe that revelation is not sealed, that we have not been handed a special believers-only version of the one whole truth, but that we are constantly learning and evolving and understanding what it means to be human, what it means to be human in beloved community, and what is sacred and holy, what is worthy of our deepest commitment and care, and capable of transforming us. You can find our current Unitarian Universalist covenant right in the front of the hymnal. after the preface. There it is. And it's what we call our purposes and principles, or more often informally known as our 7 principles. And for many Unitarian Universalists, this is what they know. This is what defines Unitarian Universalism, because that is what the principles have done since they were adopted in 1985. I grew up Unitarian Universalist, and actually, these were not part of my formative years. I'm dating myself here, but I was in college when they were adopted. And one of the things I know from growing up as a Unitarian Universalist is that things change over the years. The language we use in worship, the words to hymns, the rituals and the rites of passage, the social justice cause that we're focusing on, even our covenant. At the same time, though, there is a thread, maybe a bright yellow rope, that binds us not just to one another now, but with our ancestors and with future generations. And that thread is covenant. But how we understand and articulate that, the thread that binds us in this particular time, changes. Article 2 of the Unitarian Universalist Association bylaws contains our purposes and principles, as well as a clause about inclusion and about freedom of belief. In June 2020, the Unitarian Universalist Association Board of Trustees established the Article 2 Study Commission and charged the members to consider amendments to Article 2. This was a result of a couple of things. First, there have been proposed changes to our 1st and our 5th principles. Second, there was a proposal of the addition of an 8th principle to address racism within and beyond Unitarian Universalism. And there were several other recommendations, strategies, and resolutions that had come from the board's Commission on Appraisal and several Unitarian Universalist grassroots organizations. The Commission has spent the last 2 years holding focus groups, interviews, survey and feedback sessions on Article 2, and they submitted their recommendations to the UUA's Board of Trustees for their January 2023 meeting, which was, I think, this past week. It is public and available. I have put a pile of copies of it downstairs for social hour. You can also go to the website, uua.org, type in Article 2, and you will get it. And I would encourage everyone to read it. The Commission did a very thorough, thoughtful job. And it was very faithful work as well. And they propose what I think are some pretty significant changes to Article 2, specifically to our UUA covenant. And I have to be honest, the first time I read through them, my reaction was, what? You want to change everything now? But then I read through them again, and I saw some things that resonated with me, and I understood better what they were doing and why. I also remembered that this is a process that is far from over. Just as our congregation works on church time, so does the UUA. A bylaw change requires 2 votes, a year apart, at General Assembly, which the annual gathering of UU congregational delegates that Caroline described in the chalice lighting. So the first vote will be this June, and the second will be in June of 2024. And as with all bylaw changes, a 2/3 majority is needed to pass. So from now until that second vote, there will be a lot of amendments and changes and conversations, and what we have today may not be what happens in the end. But most importantly, I could see, when I read through it, the thread of our UU covenants through the generations. I don't have time, and you don't have time, to go through this 26-page document with all the changes and details in this sermon. So, I'll work with Dolores and Caroline to find opportunities for those of us who are interested in engaging in these proposed changes to do so, I promise. But I think it's important that as a congregation, we are at least aware that this is happening. And I would just like to lift up a couple of things that I think will give you a sense of the whole of the Commission's recommendations. First, they articulate why Article 2 is important. They write, Article 2 of the Unitarian Universalist Association bylaws, principles and purposes, is the foundation for all of our work of our UUA and its member congregations and covenanted communities. It is the covenant to which all of our congregations and covenanted communities pledge themselves when they become members of our UUA. I think that's really important. We pledge to be members of the UUA. Second, the Commission named what they found to be the limitations of our current purposes and principles through all the feedback they gathered. The principles express a shared ethic and imply a certain theology, one that values individual growth, the natural world, and diversity. But it does not name these values explicitly, nor does it name many other values important to us collectively. It also gives us no guidance on how we might approach living out these values in our congregations and the world. It declares itself to be a covenant, but the only actions it asks of congregations are to affirm and promote certain concepts. We believe we should expect more from a covenant. As one member put it, we need more verbs. For some, the current principles also serve as a theological statement, a personal code of ethics, and a way to evangelize by explaining who we are. For all these reasons, we felt we would be better served by a structure in which we articulate our shared values and then use these values as the ground for aspirational statements of action. This is also in your order of service, but they came up with an image to describe their proposed changes to our UUA covenant. And maybe you can or maybe you can't see that love is in the center. As they write, love is the power that holds us together and is at the center of our shared values. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love. And I thought to myself, hey, the Universalists are here. Then they share six core shared values: interdependence, justice, generosity, I liked that one, pluralism, transformation, that's cool, and equity. In their proposal, they offer a description of each of these, followed by we covenant, and then the practices that, the ways that we can practice or commit to practice each core value. And within some of those we covenant lines are words taken from our current 7 principles, so it's not like they're all going to be erased. As I said earlier, this feels like a lot to me, at least to me. I don't know about to you, but to me. And I will admit that a part of me is struggling with the idea of taking this on at a time when I am trying to help us negotiate the liminal season we are already in around COVID. For we are still recovering from the pandemic, and we still have holes and work of repair that we need to do here in our congregation to get ourselves back on our feet. And I'll be honest, sometimes it's exhausting, not just for me, but I know for many of you. That said, I have to follow my own words sometimes. And one thing I have talked about around liminal times, liminal seasons, that they are a time to step back and really discern our core values, to think about what we have learned, about what really matters, and what we want to bring forward with us into this new emerging landscape, and what we need to let go of. So I thought maybe this could be an energizing and unifying experience. But important to me is that we not just react to the proposed changes, but that we discern. Discernment is more than sharing our feedback and opinions. Discernment is the practice of deep, sacred, prayerful, meditative listening together to what does bind us to walk together as a community of ethics, values, and faith, tending that essential thread of the generations, as well as considering what needs to change. What does it mean to practice beloved community now, in our time? What does our Unitarian Universalist faith call us to do and be in the world now? I hope, too, that our denomination will do this work as a whole across our congregations and associated groups. I feel that the Commission has been very faithful and discerning in their work thus far, and it is not yet done. We have a voice in this if we wish. May we enter into this work with humility and wisdom. The humility and wisdom that Alice Blair Wesley offered in her idea of our covenant. Though our knowledge is incomplete, our truth partial, and our love uneven, from our own experience and from the witness of our faith tradition, we pledge to walk together in the ways of truth and affection as best we know them now, or may learn them in the days to come.